speaking with one of my personal favorite composers, Mr. Lorne Balfe, who has quickly become one of the most prominent composers working today. This year, he received an Emmy nomination for his score to Restless. Lorne also worked on the massive The Bible miniseries. Other recent projects include Girl Rising, The Frozen Ground, Salinger, Side by Side, Blackwood, Red Wing, and Beyond Two Souls. My goodness, how do you find any time to sleep, Lorne?
I don't sleep. I think sleep's overrated.
But thank you so much for talking today. It's great to chat again.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So you've been a busy guy since the last time we chatted. You were just in Spain headlining the PlayFest Festival with a 30-minute concert, and you won the Gold Spirit Award for Best Video Game Score to Assassin's Creed 3. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful experience because I think I've never done a concert before, and so it's quite overwhelming. And especially the difficult thing is that a lot of the Assassin's Creed music is very production based,
right?
And it's very difficult for an orchestra to try to have the same spirit as the main music from Assassins, because we haven't got any Native American singing, because that's not going to be possible. And in the theme, there's like 5 different types of native flutes, and there's so many instruments. It's very difficult to try to create that the essence of what those pieces are. So it was a great exercise in trying to, on the spot, rearrange music to make it work for an orchestra. So it was a lot of fun. And then also we got to, I wrote 2 special suites that were premiered at it for Beyond Two Souls that nobody had heard. So it was nice to kind of unleash that to the world also.
And I mean, yeah, so this was your first concert, and you're performing in front of a huge, audience live. What was that feeling like to be in front of to have that kind of organic response from a live audience?
Well, I think it would have been better if I hadn't chickened out and decided not to conduct. So I think I spent so long during every rehearsal sitting with the percussion section and coming. That basically it got to the last minute, and I was like, "Oh gosh, I can't do it," and so I was a big chicken. But it was it was wonderful to just sit and. I think the main thing about it is that a girl came up to me afterwards who was 15 and said that she had never seen an orchestra in her life. And the reason she came to this concert was because she loved game music. And if it hadn't been for this festival, the PlayFest Festival, she said, I would have never come to seen an orchestra. So I think it's a great way of bridging the gap for everybody to sit and listen to this music that really, the majority of the time gets ignored. I think the game music, it's the gamer kind of plays and it helps create the experience. But with a concert, you have nowhere to hide,
right.
So it's all laid out on the table, and it was a great experience for all the composers there, and the audience loved it, because I think also it was the first time to see how much this music means to people, and the gaming community are far more harsh and loyal than film music fans. I think when I started getting into games, I regularly get emails telling me where I go wrong with my music, very regularly, and with films, I don't really.
Well, I mean, with Modern Warfare 2, Assassin's Creed 3, Skylanders, you've really made a huge presence in the video game world. and I'm very excited for Beyond Two Souls. I mean, Heavy Rain was one of my favorite games, and it's such a unique experience. I think David Cage really found that like thin line between structured narrative and interactive gameplay that has never been done before. So what were your initial conversations with him like? What was the goal musically for Beyond Two Souls for this particular story?
Well, when I started properly doing games about 3-4 years ago, whenever you'd have a meeting, people would cross-reference other films, and they would say, well, we want it like this film score, we want it like that film score. And now, it's never mentioned. Games are their own identity, and with David, it's a very cinematic game. The most cinematic game I've ever worked on, and it was a case of what is the sound of this world, and it was a very difficult thing. It's like any project when somebody has created a character and lived with this character for 5-6 years. For me to then come in and say, this is the theme for this lead actress. It was a long process of getting the right emotion to represent her. And David is a very unique person because he wears two hats. I think some of the comments on YouTube kind of sum it up. Is it a game or is it a film?
Right.
People don't quite know how to pigeonhole it, and I don't think it's meant to be. It's both, and that's the way things are going to go nowadays. So it was one of the hardest projects I've worked on because it is. This game is very complicated in regards to the way it works and the different options that can arise from each decision you make in life in this game. So there will be a lot of music that every single player playing it will never hear because they may go down a different path, and that will change the decisions. So it was a very difficult thing, and also to try to. It's a difficult one to talk about because I don't want to say stuff because it can give it away and ruin the experience. But the thing is that because the lead character and her journey through life, it was to try to make sure that I was being respectful to her, and I think David was a good sergeant major and controlled me when I went a bit extreme sometimes.
And because, you're saying how tricky that is, because I think because most video games, it's, the player who kind of embodies the protagonist. You control their actions and movements, so in a way, it becomes your journey and you're personified into them. But in David's games, you see the actor's face, the performance, the line delivery, and you're watching their journey like you're watching a film. So when you're writing the music, are you keeping the story's characters in mind, or are you keeping the player's experience in mind, or how do you juggle those two?
Well, the thing is that this game, unlike any of the other games I've worked on, I'm unable to tell what the player's experience will be.
Right.
Because each decision will affect a different path of the storyline. So I think to me, it's like any gaming situation. You have to rely on your director in games and the audio team, because the composer doesn't we can't fully understand the whole concept of the game play, because we don't sit there. In a film, I will sit there and once a week I will just watch the film, and then I'll go back to just writing particular scenes and just going into certain parts of them. But then I always step back and I watch it in one big arc. Now, the difficult thing with a game is that I don't have, with Assassins, I don't have 28 hours to sit every week and play the game.
Right, yeah.
And also, I'm unable to get past the first 30 minutes sometimes because I'm so bad. So the thing is that it's a very big team effort, and you have to have the audio team from the game company controlling and monitoring how much music there is, and so they help you a lot, because it is very difficult to be able to fully understand the full world. We can understand the plot and we can understand the characters, but in regards to where music should be and how much music there should be, with Assassins, there was all, I think people complain that, well, there's not enough ambient music. Where's the ambient music gone? And you should have done it. And it's a hard one to decide, because in a film, this is an hour and a half. We know the pacing of it. But with the game, there is no pacing, because you could just simply stop moving or just slowly walk. So the timeline is far more different.
And so how much music would you say you composed for Beyond Two Souls?
Probably, I think it'll probably be about 3 or 4 hours.
Wow, that's a lot.
But the thing is that I think I always try to make sure that one thing that always annoys me is the repetitiveness of music, and I think that also annoys a lot of gamers. So I always try to make sure if I write something, and I try to kind of always, in the back of my head, say, oh, there could be another interpretation of doing this.
So now, kind of moving away from games, you worked on Salinger. You're no stranger to the documentary genre, but this must have been a challenging project. I mean, the subject of the documentary is almost a myth, a legend, such a big recluse. So what was fueling your score for this film? What did you shape the music around?
Well, Salinger was a very, very hard project because of the timeline. We were on it, and Shane was on it for 10 years, and I was on it, and I was kind of a baby. I was only on it for about 3.5 years. So it's been a long journey, and it's been a difficult one because the subject matter has been so secretive. I still haven't even seen how it ends, and I still haven't seen particular scenes in it. So there's, I'm looking forward to this weekend going and watching it in the cinema. But then I'll find out what everybody's been talking about. So it's very difficult to, and also you writing for somebody that has been so important to people's lives. Shane and I, the director, and I would have a lot of talk regarding what is the music for writing Action in the Rye. And that's quite an intimidating thing.
Yeah.
It's very like the Bible project, where how do you write a piece of music that represents Christ being crucified? It's a very intimidating thing, because it means so much to people, and you have to kind of be able to express what it means. And Salinger really has affected people, and you see that by the you talk to people, and that was their book that changed their lives. So it was a very intimidating project, but it was a fun project, because I would sometimes not work on it for months on end, and then all of a sudden a scene would arrive, and I'd start working on it. So it's been a wonderful roller coaster, and I personally, I've just got fond memories of working on it, because it's been so long, and. And his storyline, Salinger's life was just fascinating, and how the war changed who he was, and I think documentaries are so important nowadays, and at the moment, it's strange. I kind of go through spells where I did a lot of games, and now I'm kind of stepping back, and now at the moment I'm in the middle of 4 documentaries.
Right.
And actually 5. But so I kind of do lots of spells, and then next year I get back into films. But documentaries, to me, it's with the way we live, people don't have time to sit back and I feel learn things from television. television and film is all about quick experiences, and documentary, you learn things from it, and I just find that fascinating, because Salinger, the first time I watched it, I didn't know who J.D. Salinger was in my ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
But Catching the Eye was not part of the literature being brought up in the Highlands of Scotland. So when I watched the documentary for the first time, I was blown away. I was like, how has this man bypassed me in my life?
Right. So, I mean, you working on documentaries, do you find yourself becoming really emotionally attached to the subject matter and the material, and does that really fuel your writing?
Yes, because the thing is that you live in a very short space of time. You live somebody's life where you see how they became who they were. And I find that fascinating. It's like reading biographies. You see how everybody's life, how each direction makes somebody who they are. And each documentary I'm working on at the moment is based on a lead character, just like Salinger, and you see what made them who they then became, and I think it's just, you get very invested in it, because it's like anything when you're working on a film. You're staring there for 20 hours a day at the screen.
Yeah.
You begin to think you know them. So when you walk into a shop and you see somebody, I sometimes get confused. I think, wait a minute, did I know her? It's difficult to kind of separate yourself sometimes.
All right. Well, I also wanted to touch on The Frozen Ground, which you worked under director Scott Walker, who is making his feature debut with this film. Mm-hmm. And so what's it like working with a newcomer director? You know, you've been in this game for a while. You've worked with Hans a lot on big projects, and he's coming into it and kind of getting his feet wet for the first time. Was he more open as a director to your point of view, maybe, since... or did you teach him some things?
I thought, how to cook hamburgers, that was it, I think. I think Scott is, I wouldn't have been able to know if he hadn't told me that he had not made a film before. I think he made a beautiful film, and I think it was a true story, and he has invested his life into this story and wanted it to be told, and he had spent time with the real Cindy and all the people in that film in real life. So it was he wanted the story to be told, and working in the studio with him, there was never any insecurity with what he wanted. He knew what he wanted. He had a sound in his head, and he wanted to find a composer that could try to get that out of his head. Mm-hmm. And there was no insecurities with his ability to be able to say if something was rubbish. That's for sure. But I think you have to. That's what composing's about. A lot of the time was spent. It's not necessarily about sitting and writing music. It's about working with somebody. Directors don't necessarily start going into detail and saying, well, your C sharp should be an F sharp minor chord. They don't go into that. They just say the emotions, and we have to translate that with music. So it was a great exercise in I think I've made a lifelong friend now with Scott, and hopefully we will work together again. But there was no difference working with Scott than working with any other director that has done 50 films. A good director has a vision of what he or she is making, and if they don't, then the whole production will be loose.
Right. Well, that makes your job easier when you have a director who knows what he wants or he or she wants. You know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it's just the same as going into a cake shop and saying, well, I don't know if I want a sponge or if I want a fruitcake. I don't know. If you walk in and say, I'd love a fruitcake, please, then then there's some direction, and then you've got focus. But the things that you can experiment and bring new ideas to the table. But Scott had written this script and lived and had been there, and had a vision for the score, but didn't necessarily know how to explain it. So that's where the fun comes along. I think if you're just left to sit there, and write, and everything gets approved, and you get no input, it's rather boring.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, Lauren, thanks so much for talking today.
My pleasure.
It's an honor and a pleasure as usual, and keep up all that you're doing, because you're keeping our ears busy and very happy. So.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.